Well, I've thought a lot recently about how we seem to be governed by myths and legends, and I would include religion in that. And through our own cultural experiences, we're sort of taught to think and behave in a certain way. I think some of it's inherent, and maybe even primordial, but some of it's learned. So we have a few paintings that are sort of about the masculine macho prototype, where males are taught to be protectors, to guard. I actually used to have recurring dreams about that. And this one I used these two young guys who became obsessed with these guns that they had this summer, and they weren't shooting anything besides bottles really, but they loved handling the guns and doing this macho activity. With these guys here and one that's in the back room, I'm trying to capture a certain kind of machismo that is a product of certain kinds of subcultures. People feel that they have to posture in a certain way, dress a certain way, act a certain way, and want a certain way. Some of the interpretations are subtle, some are, I guess, more obvious. And there's a lot said in some literature about magic, books written about older cultures, as the Arthurian legends and those legends that precede that, and there's a lot said about magic during the time that preceded Camelot, and it's all myth. Women are gatherers traditionally, men are hunters. Those distinctions, I think, have gotten blurred a lot, thankfully so, in our own time, but it still exists and it still governs us. I don't know if you want to ask any questions or comment on that. That's sort of what I've been thinking about and trying to ponder these things through a series of works in the past year.
What's the story behind Casing the Mask of Reality?
I actually stole that from Deepak Chopra, who I was listening to, and he coined that phrase. He said that we really have to pierce the mask of reality, and I thought a lot about that and how I would depict that, to try somehow to get to the reality of our existence. That's where that came from. So that line represents the mask, and of course the finger is penetrating it and piercing it. Yes?
Is this her primal instinct?
I think possibly, yeah. And more representative of other people. There's one complete figure, but partial figure, but to me it's a whole figure as well. But I also like, I enjoy painting that way, where it can kind of break out of the constrictions of a rational three-dimensional space. This was fun to paint because I could just move the paint around. I could still do a figure that was somewhat academic, but enjoy the physical painting of it. So where I've broken out a little bit more, I would say I enjoyed the process a little bit more. I used to paint more like that, and I'm hoping to move more to that direction right now.
You can see that a lot in like some of the
Yeah,
negative
this
specs.
one, yeah. Again, there's a space that's almost believable, but it's still not a complete rational space. And you can believe that the chairs are sitting there, but you don't understand the space. The space behind the figures is somewhat ambiguous. There's an allusion to depth, but you can't really see what's there. Kind of like a Southern California summer morning at the beach where there's this marine layer that comes in. You really can't see anything, but you know something's there. And these guys are the protectors, the sentinels.
Yeah.
This guy seems kind of blanked out though. He's kind of obsessed
little
daze of some sort.
I don't know. Do you think he's in days?
Yeah, I don't seem particularly focused on anything.
The light behind these guys almost looks like he's watching TV, but you can't see him.
He seems like in a trance.
Yeah. Well.
I didn't know if that was intended.
No. Maybe it's just a byproduct. I mean, I know all of these people fairly well, or certainly spent some time with all of them. These guys are actually now related to my wife and I. They're grandsons. One biological and one who was just adopted recently as a 13-year-old. And these two guys just met each other recently, and they bonded through these activities of shooting guns and fishing and doing stuff like that. But they were perfect for this idea that I had for painting, and I had them pose for me, and they were both very willing to do it. Kind of enthused about doing it. Love flipping the guns around in different positions and trying to make believe that I wasn't there.
But you were painting them.
Yeah.
And you tell me you have a unique way of doing photo, just have like a still image that you paint from, you photograph.
Oh, yeah, well, yeah, I was talking to you earlier about how I do photo sessions and shoot hundreds of images and then blow up the ones that I like, that I want to work from and have around, and so I have all these different references while I'm working. I didn't have a whole lot of shots with these guys, but for most of the other paintings,
Up on the ladder.
well, well, the last shoot we did, we were actually shooting simultaneously from 3 angles. My wife, Margie, who's over there, who's a painter, was on one side with the camera. I was up on the ladder shooting a certain angle, and then a friend who's actually a photographer was shooting. So I was making the models move around in different positions so it would capture this information, so it would get 3 shots at once. I had an idea, I wanted to see it from 3 places simultaneously. I can't do that when I'm shooting by myself, so I have 2 other sets of really good eyes to do that.
Maybe you could talk a little bit about these small portraits. Each of these guys has an interesting story to them.
Yeah, well, this guy, his name is Charles Rockwell. And Charles was a Holocaust survivor, a child survivor. When we were up in Maine, we had an opportunity to meet some Holocaust survivors who had settled in Maine. And Charles was a little bit younger than some of the people, because he had been 7 years old when he and his brother escaped from the Nazis. His father, mother, and sister perished before his very eyes, and they escaped into France and were hidden for the duration of the war by a monk. He tells these incredible stories, and